Alright, today we're going to do the Yak Minnow, a great fly. I've been using it a lot on the beach for tarpon and snook. A little bit of what the finished version kind of looks like. Basically the black and purple for the tarpon and some of the snook while it's still dark outside, and then I use a chartreuse and white on the beach once that sun gets up. Mostly for the snook. If the tarpon are still around by that time, we'll throw that to the tarpon as well. So I'm going to start off with some black thread here. This is just 140 denier Danville, and we're just going to coat the hook and get it all the way back right about to the point of the hook on our Gamakatsu SL12S short. So this fly is composed entirely of yak hair, so we're going to get yak hair. The yak hair we're using is from Forgotten Coast Fly Company. They make a really nice, or they source a really nice soft yak hair. It's great for these minnows. UV2 also makes also has really nice yak hair. The big thing is that you just want to get yak hair that's natural. You don't want to get the synthetic stuff. So we've got a section of yak hair. We want to make it about as thick as the hook shank. And all we're going to do is kind of double it over, make one part about 60% and one part about 40%. We're going to take our 40% side to the back and our 60% side to the front here. Give it about 6 wraps. Fold that longer side back and then wrap over it. And you can make these as long or as short as you really want. That's why I didn't give you guys a length here. This one is going to be fairly long starting out, and then I'm gonna trim it up a lot shorter. But if we were tying on a much bigger hook, maybe making these for like GT or something, you could definitely keep them longer. So that first section we tied in, I mean, this is probably about 9 inches of yak hair. So this one's got a little bit too much yak hair in it. So again, missing material there. We're gonna throw a couple of lateral scales in here just for some flash. We got these thin lateral scales. We're just gonna get 2 strands of that. I don't want to forget my lateral scales. Just gonna double it around the hook, tie back up on it. All we're doing is just tying that right on top of the purple. And then just as you strip it, you'll see just a little bit of flash in the tail as you strip it, and I think just gives the fly a little something extra. Especially if you get some murky water or fishing around other bait. So now we're going to do the same thing that we did with the first one, except our 60% portion is going to go towards the back and our 40% portion is going to go towards the front. What that's doing is when we tie it in, it's making a natural taper. So this top section will be shorter than the middle section, and then the same thing on the bottom. The middle section will be longer than the bottom section. So get that tied in nice and tight. Try to make sure there's no straggling fibers in there. Good. Then we're just going to go ahead and hit this with just a little bit of Loctite gel. Just to add some durability, make sure those fibers aren't going to go anywhere on us. A couple wraps through there. So next thing we're going to do is cut our yak hair a little bit shorter and a little bit thicker. So these sections right here, as you can see here, about 4 inches long. They're much thicker. They're probably 2 to 3 times the thickness of the hook shank. This is what we're going to do to kind of stack our hairs on the front and give this fly a little bit of volume. Now if you want, on this step, you can take this wing flash and just kind of blend it in if you want your fly to have a little bit of flash. These ones are going to be specifically for tarpon, so we're not going to put any flash in these. But typically the ones that I like to tie for myself, I put that flash in there. And it seems to do pretty good on the snook. And sometimes those beach tarpon really don't care if the flash is in there or not, because they're feeding on so many minnows. All they're really looking for is just a profile anyway. So we're going to take this 4-inch section here of purple. And we're going to get about half of it and just kind of get half towards the back, half towards the front. Just kind of bend it around the hook shank a little. Kind of get it spread. And get a couple nice tight wraps. A thread. There we go. We're not going to bend it back just yet. We're going to go ahead, get a section of black, same size, you know, about 4 inches long. Just make sure the ends are tapered out a little bit. This material is really easy to taper. Usually just kind of almost tapers on its own. So again, tie this one same way, middle of the piece, half towards the back, half towards the front. Just kind of make sure we got full coverage. Tie a little bit forward, and all we're going to do is just fold our black back, fold our purple back at the same time. Kind of get all these fibers out of the way. And we're just going to take a couple loose wraps, check, just make sure that kind of give us full coverage. Looks like it did. Get a couple tight wraps on there, and then just jump right ahead of there. Again, we'll come right back with our Loctite gel, or sorry, Loctite liquid, and just get that right there on our thread wraps. And if you want, you can come back and get a couple wraps through the liquid. And the nice thing about these yak fibers is they almost feel like synthetic fibers. They're really coarse, really kind of thick, but they still have great movement in the water. So if you like fishing flies like an EP peanut butter, an EP tarpon streamer, try tying up those same flies, which is really what this is. It's just kind of an EP peanut butter, but tie it with these yak hairs, and I think you'll find you get a little bit more movement in your fly. It'll be a little bit easier to cast, and it seems to still shed water for a natural material really, really well. So we're going to continue, do the exact same thing we did on the step before. Just get another 4-inch piece of yak hair, kind of get the middle of it, and get it right in front of the piece that we just did. Gonna get it just to cover up our hook shank. Some nice tight wraps. And again with the black, same thing with the black on the top. Again, we just want to try to make sure we got decent coverage. And we'll take our black and our purple again and just kind of fold them back. And on these heads, don't be afraid to make these heads thicker than what I'm making them here. I mean, you can make these thicker if you want them to push more water. You can make them thinner. Didn't make that tight enough. Decent coverage. Yeah, you can make these heads thicker, push a little bit more water, especially if you're throwing them to tarpon in the dark. You know, it helps the tying them a little thicker helps the tarpon see them. But if you maybe you're in the backcountry or something, you can tie these a little bit thinner if you're throwing to like snook on the flats or something, where you need to have a little bit of a softer presentation. So a lot of variance with how you can use this fly. So, then we'll get our last section of purple here and our last section of black. And again, we're just going to repeat the same process. Just trying to get coverage on there. And the nice thing about this fly really doesn't foul on you at all. You know, I blind cast this thing 100 times from the beach in the morning, and I never ever have to worry about fouling on this fly. Always a nice thing when you're blind casting tarpon, not having to worry about fouling your fly. And then the durability of this fly. I mean, you can catch multiple tarpon, multiple snook, and not have to worry about this fly ever falling apart. I mean, these fibers stand up to some pretty tough snook mouths. So, I'm gonna work our thread here to the eye of the hook, and then we're gonna do the same thing that we've been doing. Just bend these fibers right back. Kind of get them back out of the way here. And this head one's kind of the hardest because it wants to kind of fight the thread and getting on there. Once you get it on and get it glued up, get some resin over it, it stays really well. Let's just make sure we got coverage. We do. Get a couple tight wraps. And we'll go ahead and we'll whip finish right here. We whip finished, we'll do the same thing we did on the other steps, get a little bit of this Loctite on the thread wraps. It's going to help just get down into those thread wraps, make sure those don't go anywhere on us. Kind of get that little straggler out of the way. Alright. So the next thing we're going to do, we got these fish eyes from Fly Tire Dungeon. These are the 8mm hot pink. I think the hot pink's a really nice complement to the black and purple. So we're just going to get some of our Loctite gel this time. We're going to pick off one of these eyes and get one eye on each side of the fly. So I like to just kind of hold the fly right on its side like this. Kind of get just behind the head of my fly here. Add a nice little dab of gel. Turn eye. Get that eye on there. And I just use the back of my whip finish tool here. Just kind of press that eye down on there and make sure it holds pretty good. See that eye's on there now. I'm going to do the same thing here on the other side. Try to make sure these eyes line up fairly straight with each other. Again, just a nice little bead of super glue gel on there. And if you guys want to know, that super glue gel holds extremely well. I've been fishing these flies for weeks on the beach, catching multiple snook, multiple tarpon on these flies, and I've yet to have any of the eyes fall off. So I mean, these eyes are staying on there pretty well. And that Loctite's really doing its job. Alright. So last thing that we're going to do, just to kind of get some extra hold on here, we got some DeerCreek Sculpt that I'm almost running out of here in this little batch, but we're just going to go ahead, we're going to cover up the thread wraps with our DeerCreek Sculpt. I'm going to run this up a little bit onto the eyes as well, just to get a little extra hold on the front of the eyes. And this really helps secure everything in place. I mean, once this DeerCreek takes hold, this fly is just not coming apart on you. Let that soak in for a second here. And even it out and hit it with our light. Alright, that should be good and dry. So you could leave the fly just like this. I'm sure you could fish it just as well. It's just a little bulky for my liking, so I'm going to come back and kind of trim it up here. I'm going to start here on the bottom, just kind of work from the hook. Just kind of make this fly shorter for my liking. I don't like my tarpon flies to be too long. We are starting to get closer here to the mullet run where I'm going to have to be using bigger flies if I plan on catching fish, but for right now they're still eating on minnows and little pilchards, so we want to keep this thing small. All we're doing is just kind of following along our taper to the back of the fly here. Making an absolute mess on our tying table, but that's alright. Normally I would just do this over the over a garbage can, but just so you guys can kind of see how we're trimming it up. So you can see it's starting to take a little bit of shape there. So you can trim this as much as you like. You know, some people get really crazy with the trimming. I just kind of trim it into a decent, just little fish shape. Once this thing's in the water, it's going to condense down a little bit, but for the most part, it does hold its shape pretty good. So let's just kind of get on the end there. We'll leave it like that for the moment. We'll probably trim this fly down a little bit more, but for the sake of the video, I mean, that's pretty much it. Like I said, you could trim this down more. It's a pretty simple looking fly, but I mean, this thing's just absolutely deadly in the water. This collar here is not going to allow anything back here to foul on you. It's a great fly as far as movement. Catches tons of tarpon, tons of snook, even got a redfish off the beach with it this year. So yeah, great fly to use, and hope you guys tie a few up and catch some tarpon this season. So good luck to you guys out there. Thanks a lot for watching.